Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Friday, April 28th, 2023. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I give you in this broadcast, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S., where if you point and click on this, it'll pull up a forecast for anywhere in the country, including any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories. You can also get information for Alaska, Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, as well as Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Looking at the map here in the continental U.S. this Friday afternoon, we have some severe weather in Texas, a couple of severe thunderstorm watches and a tornado watch. Further north, we have a frost advisory for the Central Plains, including parts of Nebraska and Kansas. And then back to the southwest, we have red flag warnings in southwestern New Mexico, southeast Arizona for critical fire weather conditions due to dry conditions, low humidity, and gusty winds. And then areas in green here in the Great Lakes region, western Lake Superior region, as well as in here through the inner Mountain West, especially in the mountains around Nevada. We have the potential for snowmelt flooding, so flood watches have been issued for those areas. Here in Alaska, we still have one little set of advisories. A winter weather advisory remains in effect until 10 p.m. this Friday evening for the western Seward Peninsula. This would include Teller and Wales down through Port Clarence, and then St. Lawrence Island. Some areas of mainly light snow and some blowing snow with breezy conditions persist there, but we expect conditions to improve later tonight and for Saturday. The Panhandle is going to see some much warmer weather on Saturday with sunshine. Temperatures will recover mid-50s to lower 60s, so a fine spring day there, but the showers will return on Sunday as some more moisture comes in off the Gulf. And as a couple areas of low pressure interact through the Gulf Coast region, we expect maybe a brief light mix of some light snow and a mix extending northward up through the Copper River Basin and then over the Alaska Range into the east central interior around Fairbanks on up to the eastern side there of the Brooks Range, especially later Saturday into Saturday night. And we'll also start to see some increasing winds on Sunday evening, especially along the eastern Arctic coast from Deadhorse on over toward Katovik. East winds could gust as high as 30 to 40 miles an hour. Looking at some of the FAA webcams on this Friday afternoon, Ambler, southwest side there of the Brooks Range, light snow and fog, temperature a little above freezing, 35 degrees. Over in the western Seward Peninsula, Teller reporting some light snow, 22 degrees. Winds are a little stronger up there toward Tin City and Wales, been gusting over 30 miles an hour at times. And then if we go way to the east along the Alcan border, Eagle, partly cloudy, 55 degrees. In fact, Eagle could see another pretty warm day coming up as we get into Monday. So some mild weather there. It may be dampened by some cloud cover here come Saturday and Sunday. And then in the southern Panhandle, Ketchikan, overcast skies, 53 right now, but you'll be seeing some sunshine tomorrow, Saturday. And much of the Panhandle will enjoy a drier day on Saturday with temperatures mid-50s to lower 60s for highs for a fine spring day there. The only winter weather advisory that remains in effect here in the western portion of the Seward Peninsula and across St. Lawrence Island until 10 p.m. this Friday evening. Just some additional light snow and some blowing snow as we've had brisk northeasterly winds across this region as a push of late season Arctic air has kind of rotated from northern parts of the state down back out over the western Bering Sea. And just want a little reminder, even though river breakup is going to be delayed this year, it's important to be prepared before the rivers break up and potentially flood. So stay safe and be proactive. Move and safeguard property before high water and ice breaks up. Take those actions early. Have extra food on hand, batteries, and any type of special medical supplies ready to go. Know your community's safety plan and emergency shelter locations in case you might have to use them. And certainly, once the higher water comes and the ice breaks up, stay out of the floodwaters and the ice flows. Well, to recap the Aurora season, we had our most recent and probably most impressive display the other Sunday, April 23rd into the morning of the 24th. That's probably going to be the last one we can see now until later in the summer and early fall. The Aurora viewing season is ending due to increasing daylight and the shortening of the nighttime darkness. We will see the full flower moon of May on the morning of May 5th here in Alaska. And one other thing to prelude as we go into summer, noctilucent cloud season happens in the latter half of July into early August. It's a limited viewing time because of the geometry of these high-level clouds. They're the Earth's highest clouds. They form 50 miles above the Earth's surface due to the interaction of trace amounts of water vapor and meteorite dust. So take a look, keep that in the back of your mind here as we get into the latter half of July and early August, the potential to see these beautiful electric blue clouds from time to time. It's not a guarantee. You just kind of have to keep your eyes peeled for them, especially around midnight and a little after. So looking at the cloud cover, we have a feed of moisture coming in through the panhandle. There is warmer air thanks to this big dome of high pressure over western Canada. That's nudging the warmer air further northward. That's why the panhandle will enjoy a fine spring day Saturday with temperatures 50s and 60s. Further west, the cold air has come on back down here across the Bering Sea. We have scattered snow showers in this region with low cloudiness. There is going to be another low come up out of the North Pacific, pass just south of the central Aleutians and then across the eastern Aleutians as we go through Sunday, and that will push a frontal system up toward the northern portion of the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, and Kodiak Island as we go into Sunday afternoon and evening. And there'll be yet another low lift northward that will help spread some moisture up across the east central interior as we get into later Saturday and Saturday night. Not a big system, but enough just to still produce maybe a little bit of light snow or a light mix. So here is that initial low here that's going to be coming northward, and as that moves northward, that'll also spread some more light accumulating snow in portions of the Copper River Basin as we go into later tonight and on Saturday. Here's kind of the lead weaker areas of low pressure. That kind of washes out. That initial low Saturday afternoon just kind of sits up here in the northwestern Gulf, and then by the time we get into Sunday, the main low around 980 millibars will be crossing the eastern Aleutians with a frontal system extending eastward. This is also going to help to push more showers back up into the panhandle on Sunday. So you get that one day of spring coming in on Saturday before more clouds and showers return, and then upwards along areas of the east central interior, you'll see some lighter snow that could be mixed with a little bit of rain or sleet. And the east winds are going to pick up here along the eastern Arctic coast, especially Sunday afternoon and Sunday night, may gust at times 30-40 miles an hour. So temperatures tonight across the panhandle above freezing, near freezing Anchorage Bowl, below freezing to the north. Temperatures, though, look at these highs Saturday afternoon, 64, Clawalk, Craig, at least 62, 63, say, on up from Ketchikan through Wrangell, even 60 possible there, Juneau. Further west, 50 Talkeetna, into the 40s here across the Anchorage Bowl. Temperatures Sunday morning mild, generally above 40 in the panhandle, generally near or above freezing once you get from Anchorage and say Valdez southward. Temperatures Sunday afternoon will be a bit cooler, upper 40s to 50s in the panhandle due to cloud cover and some showers. Temperatures could be up around 50, though, in areas of south central Talkeetna, Glen Allen, Anchorage area. Coldest temperatures far north, still some readings near or a bit below zero. In fact, this Friday morning, Anaktuvuk Pass managed to get down to 9 below. Temperatures along the Yukon River, upper 20s, near 30 degrees. Come Saturday afternoon, we should see temperatures generally in the 40s, maybe still near 50 at Eagle. We're going to have some cloud cover streaming northward and a little bit of light precipitation breaking out as we go into later Saturday and Saturday night. Temperatures along the Arctic coast is still near zero come Sunday morning, and then Sunday afternoon temperatures again will be mainly confined to the 40s along and south of the Yukon River, but we do expect temperatures to bump upwards again as we get toward Monday. Southwest interior temperatures a bit below freezing, 20s to near 30, above freezing along the Alaska Peninsula and in the Aleutians. 44 in Dutch Harbor. Saturday afternoon we'll see temperatures in the 40s, at least mid-40s. King Salmon, Dillingham, getting up toward Bethel, Aniak, and McGrath. And then Sunday morning lows will still be a little below freezing there across the southwest interior, above freezing along the Alaska Peninsula, coastal areas in through the Aleutians. And then temperatures Sunday afternoon will be back up generally in the 40s along the Alaska Peninsula and up through the lower Yukon and Kuskokwim River basin. So not too bad of weather, at least temperatures finally moderating. However, compare this to normal. As we go through the first week of May, temperatures are expected to average below normal across much of the mainland, centered across the southwestern third, areas in and around Cook Inlet, Anchorage, westward through Bethel and Dillingham. Temperatures are expected near normal in the northeast and down across areas of the central southern panhandle. Precipitation may average a little above normal across the west and southwest up along the north slope, but near normal for areas of south central up through the eastern interior and then back across a good portion of the panhandle. So at least relatively speaking, we're not anticipating any heavy precipitation as we go into early May.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's now time for your aviation weather. If you have a flight plan this weekend, either on Saturday or Sunday, a couple of things we're going to be watching. Warmer air that's going to be pulling up along the panhandle, getting temperatures in the mid-50s to even lower mid-60s on Saturday afternoon. The cold air that was in place over the far north, the core of that has rotated back out into the western areas of the Bering Sea, and we're going to have a low pressure come up out of the North Pacific heading up toward the eastern Aleutians by Sunday afternoon and evening, and that'll be the next primary low pressure system. Right now, though, Saturday morning, still a weak area of low pressure over the northern Gulf, a feed of moisture creating IFR conditions there, especially the northeastern Gulf Coast centered on Yakutat. Further north and west, we have a band of IFR conditions, especially on the south side of the Brooks Range, down along areas of the lower Chukchi Sea, Seward Peninsula, and along the southwest coast, especially the lower Yukon Delta. But by Saturday afternoon, with the daytime warming at this time of year, high sun angle, we find those ceilings wanting to lift and conditions improving to VFR, MVFR across much of the mainland. Still, though, an area of IFR, persistent IFR out over the eastern Gulf, on up toward Yakutat, up toward the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains for Saturday afternoon. And as we go into Sunday morning, we see the IFR conditions redevelop along the Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast, down into the lower Chukchi Sea, all the way from the Bering Strait, down across St. Lawrence, St. Matthew, Nunavik Island, into the eastern Aleutians. And by Sunday afternoon, as low pressure begins to work its way through the eastern Aleutians, we have an area of IFR across the at least the southeast quadrant here of the Bering Sea. Also an area expanding out through the southwestern Gulf along the east side of Kodiak Island and there southward, and an area of IFR conditions that persist along the central and eastern Brooks Range in the north. And past conditions during the day on Saturday, we're looking for IFR conditions becoming MVFR at Anatuvik. Same thing at Adigan Pass, IFR early in the day Saturday, giving way to MVFR with the daytime heating. Further south and west, the west arm of the Alaska Range, MVFR becoming VFR at Lake Clark and Merrill. Same thing at Rainy Pass, MVFR to VFR. And we expect that in the central Alaska Range at Windy Pass, MVFR becoming VFR. A little further east, Isabel should generally hold on to MVFR conditions. And also to start out, Mentasta Pass, lower ceilings, IFR conditions there Saturday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. Tanita Pass, generally MVFR conditions are expected during the day Saturday, and further south and west, Portage Pass, likely generally seeing VFR conditions prevail on Saturday. And then in the far northern panhandle, we'll see IFR conditions early Saturday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions at both Chilkoot and White. Now, in the realm of where the freezing level is in the warmest air. It's associated with a big ridge of high pressure over western central Canada. As a result, we see freezing levels aloft as high as 8,000, 10,000 feet along the middle lower panhandle. That's why such warm temperatures are going to be there Saturday afternoon with some sunshine. Further west, the core of the coldest air that was up over northern parts of the state has rotated back toward the western Bering and will moderate a bit. Still, though, below normal temperatures anticipated across these areas. The surface freezing line, though, coming up into areas of the southwest interior west of the Alaska Range, and then crossing on up into areas of the Yukon. So there is definitely warmer air off to the south and east. Unfortunately, it's not really going to pull much further back to the north or west. Greatest threat for icing, a moisture feed up toward areas just west of Cape Suckling and through Prince William Sound will be possible during the day Saturday, generally above 4,000 feet. Another area of precipitation here with the low in North Pacific affecting areas of the central Aleutians, generally above 2,000 feet. The upper level jet stream winds, we find a jet core of 105 knots south of the Alaska Peninsula, but a big area of high pressure out over Canada, allowing for more of a southwesterly flow up along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle, hence the warmer temperatures. 700 millibars, we see the low circulation back out here in the lower southern half of the Bering Sea. Coldest air is on the backside of this. We have the warmer air that's coming on up into the Panhandle. And then for 3,000 feet, we find a low circulation there just south of the central Aleutians. As a result, we do expect some isolated areas of moderate turbulence south end of the Panhandle around Ketchikan. Also up there west of Yakutat toward Cape Suckling along the northern Gulf Coast. And then an area along the eastern and central Aleutians, there could be some moderate turbulence, generally from the surface to 3,000 feet.
You see every aspect of what Weather Service does up here in Alaska. The ice breakup in the inland waterways. When the ice backs up, you get flooding. We work hard with the native population to try to prevent the impacts of that flooding.
Good morning, AKwx. This is the Riverwatch team flying over the village right now.
Good morning. How's the old river doing?
This is upstream of the village where the ice will jam, and there's no current to push anything past the village.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so we've been flying the river over the past week or so. You know, coming into this, it was looking like the lower rivers mushing out. And what I mean by the lower river is from Tuluksak on down. And that's what we thought was going to happen, you know, just based on talking to folks about the winter you had here. And then upstream of that, we still have, you know, some good in-place ice up through the Kauskag, through the Aniak area. But really the main ice that we're looking at is the ice that's upriver, you know, in the Crooked Creek and Sleet Mute area.
So what does this cold weather mean for breakup?
It means that breakup is going to take a little bit longer. I realize that people are, you know, impatient to get on with summer, and I know that the birds are in and people want ice to be gone in order to commence summer, and I totally get it.
People use the river for transportation throughout both the winter and the summer. So in the winter that they have ice roads, and those are able to connect villages to Bethel and villages to each other. And then in the summer, people use the Kuskokwim River as transportation in boats.
During breakup, they're stuck. Once the ice gets too thin to get on, the snow's melted, can't go anywhere except by airplane, which is really expensive. And so you find that people are anxiously waiting for the ice to go out.
Each year we try to classify or try to describe through our outlooks and during the process whether the river is going to break up thermally, where the ice just melts in place, or whether it may break up dynamically, and that's where there's a strong push from snowmelt into intact, hard, strong ice, and that's when we see ice jams.
As part of Riverwatch, the Alaska Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management works very closely with the National National Weather Service, and we partner up out here. There'll be a hydrologist and an emergency manager, and we'll fly the river daily, looking at ice conditions and checking in with local communities. Oftentimes, as it allows, we land in the communities and meet with community leaders to discuss their flooding preparedness plans and other general emergency management information.
It's a partnership that we've developed over the years that works together seamlessly. We begin, I think we probably begin talking about it in early March, and then the execution phase comes in late April and May when we're actually flying.
So we're sort of the eyes of the villages, and by using the VHF radio to communicate with them, as we fly by, we can tell them, what those conditions are.
In the Weather Forecast Office, we are responsible for issuing the watches and the warnings and the advisories for the ice jam floods that can occur. Coordinate with the River Forecast Center and with the River Watch team in order to get the best information possible so we can issue these watches and warnings and advisories.
You see one NOAA in Alaska like nowhere else, and I have told every administrator since I've been coming up here that very fact. They work closely together. They work closely with their partners in the community, the DOD, the state, the local community, and the native population. It benefits that community because they're getting the expertise that resides here in the River Forecast Center, but it helps us by getting their knowledge and getting their expertise and experience and translating that into the services we provide.
We invited Dennis to come up in the plane with us to not only, have him see for himself what the ice conditions are and maybe what that threat, potential is for flooding here in Crooked Creek, but also to give us a sense of place in this part of the Kuskokwim.
It's really nice to be able to get to talk to people and talk to people who might be affected, who are being affected directly, and just really appreciate the tight-knit network of people on the Kuskokwim River.
We needed to know what it's like out there, to learn it and to prepare for it. I used to try to let people know that, it's going to break at a certain time, but I kind of quit doing that. I'd rather just enjoy it the way it is.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and let's take a look now at the sea ice edge before we get into the marine forecast. The ice is well in place across the Arctic coast and down through the lower Chukchi, though there are some plinias that have opened up along areas of the northwest coast. We start to see some water appearing there, especially south of the Bering Strait, along the Russian coast, west of Point Clarence and Wales, and also some areas opening up there in the northeast portion of Norton Sound. Further south and west, the ice edge is definitely melting off. We're at that tipping point now in the season where this is just going to continue to progress with the high sun angle and gradually warming temperatures, though below normal temperatures are still going to persist across this region for the foreseeable future and through early May. We're still going to see the ice begin to melt off and retreat northward. As far as marine weather goes, for the Panhandle on Saturday, very mild conditions. Afternoon highs where there's sunshine could break 60 degrees here, especially in through the inner channels. Winds will be out of the northwest, 10 to 15 knots, waves 2-3 feet. For the outer coast, nearshore waters within 15 nautical miles, winds will be east-northeast, generally 10 to 15 knots, though stronger. Easterly winds to 30 knots west of Yakutat, waves generally running 6 to 7 feet. And then on Sunday, we'll see a mixed bag of winds 10 to 15 knots in through the inner channels. Waves could be as high as 5 feet. feet there. Dixon entrance. Off along the outer coast, winds will be west-northwest 10 to 15 knots, with waves generally 5 to 6 feet, though maybe as high as 7 feet there off of Craig. And for the northwestern Gulf Coast, mixed bag of winds here, especially off the Kenai and west of Cape Suckling. Winds 20 to 25 knots. We'll see northerly winds to 15 knots with 3-foot waves in Prince William Sound. Variable winds around 5 knots at the entrance of Cook Inlet with waves running 4 feet. Northwest winds upper Cook Inlet with waves a couple of feet there. By Sunday, winds will be southeasterly 20 knots within Prince William Sound with waves of 3 to 4 feet. Winds turn northeasterly 15 to 20 knots through the upper and middle portion of Cook Inlet, but the entrance, we expect winds to go southeast to east at 30 knots ahead of an approaching frontal system associated with a low. It'll be down there toward the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. And here taking a look at Kodiak Island on Saturday, winds will generally be out of the northeast 15 to 20 knots, but then as low pressure approaches from the southwest, we'll see winds southeasterly 15 to 20 knots, waves 3 to 5 feet on the North Pacific side, 1 to 3 feet on the Bering side. And by Sunday, low pressure will be passing up through the eastern Aleutians up toward the far western end of the Alaska Peninsula, and winds are going to increase southeast 20 knots over Kodiak Island, but upwards of 25 to 30 knots from the south and southeast along the Alaska Peninsula, with waves building 10 to 12 feet on the North Pacific side and 3 to 4 feet on the Bering side. Across the Aleutians Saturday, we have a low that is situated just south of the central Aleutians. Ahead of it, southeast winds 20-25 knots throughout the eastern Aleutians on Alaska, Nikolsky, but then on the backside of it, winds turn northerly 30 knots with waves 10 to 12 feet on the North Pacific side and 9 to 12 feet on the Bering side. Come Sunday, that low is going to work its way up through the eastern Aleutians. Southwesterly 30-knot winds around on Alaska, shifting west-northwest 40-knot gales, and waves building 15 to 17 feet there, especially on the Bering side of the central Aleutians. And across the southwest coast, winds are generally going to be out of the east 10 to 15 knots, where there is some open water. Easterly winds 20 knots at St. Matthew with 7-foot waves. Winds a bit more variable in the vicinity of St. Paul and St. George. And for Sunday, with that low pressure just south here in the bottom of the screen, we expect the circulation, counterclockwise circulation, winds northeasterly out of Norton Sound along the lower Yukon Delta, 15 to 20 knots. Northerly 25 knots at St. Matthew with waves of 8 to 9 feet as we get down toward St. Paul and St. George. Along the Arctic coast, easterly winds 15 to 20 knots all the way from Kaktovik down through Point Lay, and they'll continue easterly to a lesser extent 10 to 15 knots. Lower Chukchi Sea, northeast 15 to as high as 25 knots on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, and then on Sunday, easterly winds continue in the far north 15 to 20 knots. Northeasterly winds 10 to 15 knots through the lower Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait, and as high as 25 knots on the north side of St. Lawrence.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.